Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Hammock. I'm application engineer at Danfoss Drives. Been with Danfoss Drives for over 18 years now. So
Joe,
this
let's wait.
presentation, Mhm.
Joe, let's wait until 12 o'clock. They're still coming in.
Oh, I see. Yes, I can see the attendees
Yeah,
number.
we
Well,
just
thank
want
you.
to give you
Well,
time
that
to
was
get.
just a practice run.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I didn't know
and
if I
we'll
could
get
hear
through.
you guys. I did because I heard the 3, 2, 1 from him, and then I heard the go to meeting like, oh, it's all ready to go. The active function for declogging and keeping the pump impellers free. It can be used to in a preventive mode that can be set to do the deragging feature or function every time the drive starts or stops. That is a selective function of the drive, or it can be reactive based on motor power, and that is a tunable item in the drive also. What the deragging does, if anything, while trying to run the pump, it will cycle back and forth. It will go forward for a little while, it will go backwards, and you can set the timing as well as how long it will run, what speed it will run, and also the dwell time between forward and backward function. Important to note on this is that this can only be used on a pump that can be run in both directions. So pumps that can't go backwards, this feature cannot be used then. Benefits of using the deragging, in the FC202, the deragging feature doesn't require any external equipment to enable it or use it. As again, it can be used as a preventive. It doesn't have to be clogged. You can set it to run at every start and stop, or just at the starting or just at the stopping. It's very easy to configure. And as seen in one of the handouts, there's a quick, easy way of setting it based on the power tuning feature. It does reduce downtime. We had this actually in the drives for I want to say almost 10 years now, actually. And it has been used in many wastewater applications around the globe. It prolongs the lifetime of the pump and can reduce the number of callouts or problems or blockages in pumps. It needs no extra programming. It is a pre-canned feature in the FC202, and it can help save energy based on, not trying to run high speed, trying to declog it just forward. As I've mentioned earlier, the deragging feature can be triggered based on right at start, at stop. It can be called upon based on a separate digital input. So even if it's running and you have a separate item or something like that, or based on an external timer, you can tell it to derag. It is built into or can be triggered based on the drive's internal time-based functions. The drive also has a smart logic controller, and that is one of the actions that can be programmed based on a sequence. And also it can be triggered based on power of the motor, knowing that it's using more power than normal, and can trigger that it needs to be deragged or declogged. Configuring the deragging feature is pretty simple. The parameters in the drive of that feature, it has the number of cycles. If you want it to be triggered based on the start stop, let me get a pointer here. There we go. So like I said, we can have it, the cycles could be 1 to 10 times. This setup actually turns the feature on as the main on-off for enabling the feature. So by default it is off, but you set it for how many cycles you want it to run. And again, if you want to have the feature as a preventative function to every time you want it to start or every time the drive will stop, or both. The run time, so this is the time, the dwell time for running at speed. The deragging speed is selectable, and there's two parameters here based on the main parameter drive, whether the speed settings are based on RPM or Hertz. And then the derag off delay, so between running forward and then stopping, and then running backward and stopping. This is the setting of the time between those, allowing maybe solids to settle or anything like that to help it get clear. That said, also the deragging, other than not setting the preventive start-stop kind of function, derag can be triggered based on power usage of the motor. This does take a configuration sequence, and in that one of the handouts says it's kind of has it's a 3-pager, and the last page has how to easily set it up, and I'll demonstrate that at the end here. But there's a readout. That's why there's no range in here, but there is an actual readout of the calculated power that will trigger it. So at any speed through the envelope, it tells you what's this high level line. And also there is a correction factor. So we can set the baseline here, and then kind of above this baseline, where do we want the triggering line? So we kind of, in these parameters, we'll set what's the normal power line and then the derag trigger line. So this is the offset from the normal power line that we set. And then there is a delay between crossing this threshold. So we don't want to just go into derag at any little blip of power. There is a delay between being over this line, then triggering to go into derag. And then in the configuration here, this line is developed based on 2 points, a low speed and a high speed. Generally, the high speed is the full speed of the pump, and the low speed is set to a minimum running when we're actually developing power. So we don't want to set this at 0, but typically we set this at around 60% speed. And then you set, like, what are these speeds are in here? Low speed, high speed, and then what is the power level? The low power point and the high power point. And then there's a bandwidth, kind of what's this bandwidth between running and that. You can set that other than the correction factor. And number of times the power monitoring can trigger consecutively. So this is actually, if we're having a clog and it keeps on clogging, then we can trigger a fault if the drive cannot clear itself. And it'll give you a custom an alarm code and the wording on the screen saying the pump is clogged, it can't derag or declog it. And the number of times, can be number of times it can be consecutively deragging. So there's the timing and then number. Status notifications of the drive on the keypad. The lower line of the drive will basically give you basic functions of, running, ramping, stop, standby. It'll also have derag. It'll actually tell you that the function is active and it is deragging at that point. There's also, for field bus, a extended status where there's a bit defined for derag function is active. And also you can set the digital outputs or the relay for derag for hardwire notification that derag function is active. DERAG is also one of the quick menu items in the water and pump application level. This infogram here is showing through the quick menus, the Q3 or Q7, excuse me, is the water and pump area. And of other water and pumping applications, you see DERAG is one of the features here, as well as there's pipe fill, dry run, end of power curve, sleep mode, flow compensation, and some of the special ramping. But when you go into that group, it will take you into the DERAG in here. This one's just showing other type of parameters in the quick menu. This feature has been used, like I said, in other parts of the world. This particular one is a pumping station in the Netherlands. This one, it had a station that was being clogged or blocked 4 to 5 times per month by towels. Every time it happened, they'd had to troubleshoot it and travel out there about an hour and a half to get out there. Using the DERAG feature has actually cleared this up for this particular station, that they have had no more incidents just using the reactive part of it, so based on the power tuning. So anytime a towel came in, it would DERAG itself and clear it up and then send it on its way. So this particular site has seen a major cost savings just using that feature, just based on travel time and pulling the pump and all that stuff of clearing it. Another site in Germany uses this, and they were also having the same kind of thing, 1 to 2 times a week. They would have problems with sediment and debris in the pump. So they were using the preventive function because sediment was just constant there. So every time start it, they would have it do a DERAG to clear itself and then run. And this actually is a scope feature in the drive, just showing speed and showing the DERAGing. So kind of run backwards, then stop, run forward, stop. And they did it 1, 2, 3 cycles, and then run to application. I did this kind of quick. It is pretty much designed to be a simple setup. At this time, I will show the parameters on a live drive that I have here. So let me bring up my drive here.
Okay.
Okay.
Joey, we have a question.
Yes, please.
And that is, are typical settings available for DERAG, or are they automatically set in the drives?
DERAG, I hope I'm answering this correctly, but DERAG has the settings in all of the FC202 Aqua drives. The feature is disabled in the drive, so you have to enable the feature and then set it up how you want it. Let's take a look actually. So DERAG is one of the application menu items. And here, like I said, the first parameter, 2910, the cycles is off. So no cycles, the feature is off. The start stop is disabled at the time. And see, their time is 0. It does have a minimum speed kind of preset, or actually the DERAGing speed, excuse me. So you have to set the speed. The off delay is 10 seconds, so there's a default time. And And there's a counter actually in the readouts here. This is another readout of how many times it's DERAG. So you can come back and take a look at how many times it's run, and that counter can be reset. But for basic setting it up, I'd say I'd go through all these settings and set it up. So if I wanted to set just the preventive, let's say I want to do 3 cycles every start. So just like the German one. How long do I want it to run? Let's say 30 seconds forward and reverse with a off delay of 10 seconds in between, and what speed, So let's say about minimum speed. And this gets pushed up to minimum motor speed is the lowest this can be set. And that's it for the preventive. So just deragging at start. And there is choice start or at stop or both. But this is the simplest method here, and it's not a lot to set up. If we want to do it based on power, there is a DERAG power tuning function here, and this is where we set those points and stuff like that. So there's parameters in here, and no, they aren't preset. You do have to set these manually, and that's why I've given that handout on setting this up in the simplest form. And that's what I'm going to show here. For this, like I said, as I mentioned earlier, for this function to work in the limits, the motor has to be able to be run both directions. And in the FC202, by default, it's only going to go forward or clockwise. So I have to go into this parameter for the direction and set it to go both directions. Was there any other questions before I move forward with this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question about the recommendations. How do they know if customers should choose between the preventative DERAG versus the reactive DERAG?
It's mostly application specific. As I showed those two places where this was done, it was based on kind of what's going on. Where the one that was getting clogged with towels a lot, it was best to have the reactive mode to be happening, because it would, it could happen at any time. So while it's pumping, then a large, if I say towel or rag, comes in, hits the impeller, and the power goes up, it's clogged, then it can run through the cycle, clear itself, and continue to run. This is where we say how many times will it do it. Okay, so it can derag and then try to run. If the power goes up and it's still in there, it can do it again, and it can keep doing it up to a limit that we set in the drive. The other site where it wasn't necessarily rags or towels, it's just the site has a lot of sediment and debris, and when the pump isn't running, it settles and kind of clog up the pump. So when you first start, maybe the pump under normal circumstance can power to it, and maybe sometimes it can't. So sometimes just running it backwards just kind of stir the sediment up, doing kind of a, if I say a wig wag like a washing machine, just to get it to all move around, then run forward right out of DERAG. Then that feature, the preventative, was the best choice. And you can use them both at the same time. You don't have to just use one or the other. You can have it both, every start and every stop, and when it detects power while running. So you can use both. It's just, whichever you need based on the application, what kind of problems you're seeing. And I get that if brand new installation, not having a problem, kind of depends on the area. If we're doing a lot of sediment or junk can get in, then turn it on. The preventative, the only thing that maybe a customer could have an issue is it's a delay in running in the process. If I'm hitting the prick, because it's going to do it every single time I tell it to start. Do note that if that's a problem, that there's a, I need to get pressure or something like that, and that delay isn't great, then possibly the preventive can't be used there. Any other questions? I don't see the questions. I only see the chat.
Yeah, there's one other question. What about check valves? Does this affect DERAG?
It could, yes. Well, no, I wouldn't say it does, because this is where you set your speed. So I'm not necessarily going to push the check valve open and pull the backward. Oops. So I don't think it can be. Yes, it can be used with check valves, just because we're going to go into low speed, possibly more in a no flow kind of condition, but we're not overheating the pump. We're just trying to break it loose and then run forward and push the check valve open. So it can be used with check valves, and not, the speed that you set should be below opening and closing the check valve, because we don't want to push it open then suck it shut. Any other question? I see you gave me something on here. I guess I can. I can see him now. Are typical settings available? Okay, I saw that. Okay, I got it. Nope. Is the audio on? Okay, I think we got through all the questions here.
Okay, this is a good time for me to send out a poll.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. And while you guys are answering the poll, one thing to note is that this is built into the Danfoss drive, our Aqua drive, the FC202. That is the only drive that it is built into, but it is free of charge. There is no software update required or extra piece of software. It is included with the drive. So that's very, it's a cost savings opportunity for those of you who are responsible for pump stations and lift stations and that kind of thing. John Harwood, do you want to add anything?
No, I think, just to add to what you said, Mike, was that the biggest thing is that this is included in the drive. There are third party, if you will, products out there, but there's a current monitor involved, and then you have actually a reversing contactor that has to be wired in to the existing system. So, and we've seen in doing our research that those range anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 a piece. So if you've already got a Danfoss drive, it's there. If you're looking to upgrade your system with a drive and you're having these such issues, we have it built in and available. So just please keep this in mind.
So as I showed, yes, I said this is a built-in function. I was going to show here, as we went through the preventive functions, and we can go into the quick menu. There's the applications built right in. And this is a standard Danfoss drive that I'm showing here. And this is I know it says LCP simulator for everyone, but I am connected to a live drive through the computer to as the keypad. So this is acting as the keypad as you would see it on the drive itself. So as I go down to the features here, and there's the deragging feature, I can set the preventive. So just to show it function even at start. So we had 3 cycles here, right at start. For showing it, I'm going to set it really fast so we can see it run. So I'm going to do 3 seconds. I'm going to set the deragging speed at a slower speed than my reference. I have a 900 RPM reference up here, and we're doing it at 600.
Do you have an actual motor there?
I do. DERAG power factor, I ain't gonna worry about that. So this is gonna go into the power. So I'm just gonna do the dwell time one. So when I'm done, let me change let's change it to RPM. Going the wrong way. There we go, RPM. So as I start, it's gonna start doing the DERAG. And as I see auto remote standby, so right when I start the drive, it goes to DERAG and it's going reverse. Should do this for 3 seconds. Yep, and then it stops. And you see the arrow in the upper right changes direction showing, and it stopped. Now it's going forward. So this is 1. Now it's going to stop. 3 seconds. Run backwards again. 3 seconds. Stop. I probably could have done it twice, but so this is the second sequence. Now it's going to stop again. 3 seconds. Go backwards again. 3 seconds. Stops. And note it says DERAG on the bottom. So we know it's doing it. And then after the sequence of 3 seconds, it's going to go to reference. Now it's ramping, and now it's running on reference. And that's the starting sequence. So I set the DERAG to do the sequence at start. And if I stop the drive, I ramp down. And if I start again, it will DERAG again at every start in this case. I just stopped it. And see, I can start and stop it. Even if I'm deragging, the stop went away, it stops. It doesn't hinder the start stop, or it has to do the derag before stopping if I commanded it to, or starting the delay, but it will do it every time now at start.
Joey, does it have to be in manual mode or auto mode or hand mode to go into DERAG?
It doesn't work in hand mode. It has to be in auto mode. If I come up and press hand, I want to run right now. It doesn't do the DERAG in hand.
Got it.
It is an auto mode only function.
And if you don't go back and set that setting that allows the drive to run, the motor to run backwards, the drag is not going to work, correct?
No, I don't think it is. So here, I just set it to the default clockwise only here, and I'll tell it to start. So the function still, but I don't think the arrow is going to change. I think it wants to, but the motor won't run backwards. This is the command I'm looking at. Yeah, I guess the arrow is still showing. Let me see my motor.
The arrow changed. Is your motor running backwards?
Hold on. Yes, it is. So it still worked. So
okay,
it didn't
so that's something
here.
to note.
So I
the
get
DERAG will override.
It will override this, yes. So it did actually run backwards. So this didn't matter. So even if my controls are clockwise only, I guess this would be DERAG overrides that, and it ran the motor backwards. So note that.
Yeah, that's great. Another question came in. Why did Danfoss use power to monitor and trigger the DERAG function of current or torque?
I want to say it's what, they're all kind of related, as we know. Power, torque, and current are all related in the drive. I believe that's, personally, I would say we use power because it's another function that we use for no flow. and sleep mode and all that. And note here, and I think it's in the handout, if you're using the no flow function and you do the tuning procedures in the no flow, you will be tuned, it will adopt those numbers in the DERAG. So if you do the no flow auto tuning, it will put those points in the DERAG also, so you don't have to do two separate tunings. But as far as which is better, I think power is used as far as, because we're using the motor as a sensor in this case, and it's one of the things in the drive that it is monitoring all the time, and it's kind of more real to what the motor is using based on, because we're doing it not necessarily at current all by itself, it's current at a speed, so it's doing it at a power level. Could we have done it probably with amps? Yeah, or torque, but I think in the water application, I don't know if we always focus on torque per se as it would be in a industrial side of things. So I think it was probably just a choice that power is a function of, you know, current and torque and that, so power was selected.
Okay, great. Thanks. Another question came in.
Mm-hmm.
Some client might not realize that they have this feature.
Mm-hmm.
If the station is currently clogged, can I come in and just trigger DERAG for a one-time operation?
Yes. You can go into the DERAG here and set the cycles that you want to go, and say the function is off here, and I didn't do the power either, but I set up, you know, how long, you know, how many cycles, how long I want it to run each direction in this case, what speed, and the off. So I just set those four parameters here, and I just trigger it. Like I said, one of the other ways I can trigger is off of digital input. DERAG is one of the choices in here as a digital input triggering mode. A lot of different, oh, I didn't see it in here. Where is it? Oh, there.
Just
Reset DERAG. I must have flew right past it. Digipont, auto hand. Oh, didn't see it in there. Might be in some of the other one of the digital inputs. Let's try a different one. Let's try 33. I'll have to look that on. I didn't see that. I thought I could trigger it right there. You could just, like he was saying, though, if I wanted to easy, yeah, I could just come in here and set the DERAG at any time. It doesn't have to be right at commissioning, and I just want to run it, so I'll set the DERAG function. So I'll just set it start and set these parameters, and then just give the drive a start command, and it will DERAG. And then when I'm done, okay, it's clear he doesn't want to keep it going, then I just turn that function back off, and it won't DERAG again until next time. Or you can leave it on and say now it's not going to DERAG. So that's one easy
I
way.
have another question. Question says, our mixers run 24/7, and our SCADA network looks at current.
Mm-hmm.
Is a current setting available? Now, I'm not sure if he's asking, is it maybe he's asking if you can set the DERAG to look at current instead of power.
No, it almost sounds like he's already monitoring current out of the drive, and that's two different ways. No, I can't, I can set the power automatic thing, but maybe he doesn't want the drive to determine when the DERAG. Since they already have a SCADA, he wants the SCADA to monitor current, and seeing a high current condition, he wants to trigger DERAG. And that's what I was looking at, digital input, and we can. Let me check the programming guide and see if it's linked to a certain digital input. Then I would like to answer that question because I know I've triggered it.
Okay.
Let me check.
So what I'm hearing from you, Joey, is if he's monitoring current via the SCADA, however he's doing that with a analog output from the drive or a communications signal, he can process those inside of his SCADA or PLC and let the PLC decide when to DERAG and then send the DERAG signal via a digital input in the drive.
Yeah, I'd have to look at, I'm sure we can trigger his controller can monitor, right, right, but how do we trigger it? And let me check something. So I'm looking through the digital input settings personally. Latched pump DERAG, choice number 85 is what I see it's called. Let's
yeah, show us that one on the simulator.
So let me see here. That's why it says. So inputs.
If anybody wants a link to download this simulator, just send me a question.
So it's 85. There it is. So it says latch. So it's like a latch start because once it's triggered, it's going to run the DERAG. So when this goes off, it will. Let's see how it acts. So there, I turned that on. I turned it on terminal 33. So I'll just hit 33. So no, I have to give it a start at the same time. It's telling me. Okay. So I have that. I don't have two jumpers here.
Well, they need to increase your budget.
I need more switches. But yeah, you can trigger it here, and I believe also, being he's in a serial communication setup, in the drive as far as the control words, we have, that's the status word, and we can configure control word bits. So these are the bit numbers, and there's the default, but I can command that DERAG. I can set a certain bit, change its function. So bit 12, which I think that's just a like control a relay, I can change that to trigger DERAG with start through serial. So he doesn't have to, if he's not hardwired, he's doing things through Ethernet, Ethernet IP or DeviceNet or what have you, you can configure the drive's control word bits, like say he's not using the relays, or there's also a couple other that changes presets, he's not using them. We can edit the bit to do another function like DERAG here too through the serial. Any other questions on there?
Joey, is DERAG affected by the automatic motor adaptation?
Yes and no. It is a standalone feature that is, triggered based on start stop or by power. The auto motor adaptation is a motor tuning thing for the voltage vector control to control the motor and possibly save energy. So if I've set the DERAG and did all the power tuning, because the power tuning is done based on live settings, and then I did the AMA, and then the motor starts using less power, possibly we have to adjust the scaling factor to detect the clogged pump function at lower levels then. So if AMA was done before, will it affect it after I set it? No. But if I do AMA after and it changes the power that the motor's using to a lower level, just saving more energy, then basically those lines get farther apart. So kind of a yes and no.
Right. Which AMA do you recommend? I know there's like 5 different options.
Depends on the motor type. I know there are some new ones in here. And you have the complete and reduced, and then there's the 2. There's a AMA 2.
Joey, you need to explain what AMA stands for.
The automatic motor adaptation. So when you program in your motor, we do the basic stuff, which is the power rating, the motor voltage, motor rated frequency, current, and RPM. There's other parts of the more data, I'd say, of the motor model, which you have the stator resistance, rotor resistance, and reactance, and such. The automatic motor adaptation will adjust these. It does a tuning on the motor and puts these numbers in basically based on sensing from the output current sensors and such. So this will also take the motor cables into effect, all the resistance and capacitance. So when you set the basic motor parameters, the drive will take a default motor model. So these numbers will change just based on basic motor tuning and stuff, mostly Euro motors, I'd say, because it's a Danish design. But when you do AMA, it corrects these numbers for real live data then. And these numbers are used to give the motor, it tunes the output of the drive to give the motor exactly what it needs at different power levels at different voltages and different frequencies. So the different AMAs, and as we saw, that we're going to cut these into 2 different parts. So we have a complete AMA, which tunes all the reactance and resistance, and there's a reduced. The difference between, like I said, when I would use them, the reduced only does the main resistance. And I would always do the complete, but sometimes certain motors, or let's say there's more capacitance in the cable and stuff, this will fail. It can't get the all the correct numbers, or it doesn't settle out. It actually, when it's doing the tuning, it makes the current signature ring, and it does different carrier frequencies to figure out when that ringing goes away, and that's the number. So think of it as like a digibridge or a millihenry kind of metering that it's doing to learn what the reactance is. But if that cable has too much capacitance, or there's other, let's say, noise or interference happening, and it can't get a steady signal, then this AMA will fail. And to compensate, you can do the reduce then. You don't get all the numbers, but you get, tuning the basic motor model with the correct resistance. So more of a basic AMA. That's when I would do the reduced. When complete fails, do the reduced. Now, I would have to do the reduced if I had also a coil. You can try doing the complete, but I think most of the time they fail if I have a motor coil. And definitely if I have filters, sine wave filter, or a DVDT filter, then you can't do well, you could do the reduced possibly, but generally you don't have to do the AMAs at all, because of course, the filters filter out the motor. AMA2 is a different AMA, mostly with permanent magnet motors in mind. And I think these aren't for standard asynchronous motors, which I've tried the two. I think on a synchronous motor, it will go very fast and just everything's fine, but the numbers don't change. So I think these, what I was told, the AMA2s are for permanent magnet motor tuning, but the AMA1s do tune permanent magnet motors also. This one's just a faster function, I think more DC reactance and stuff. But that's the difference. Any other questions?
That's great, Joey. One more question did come in. How do you change the ramping up and down? And I think he's referring to the time, of the ramp, and maybe as well as the RPM.
The deragging has a speed setting in it, but the ramp times are based on the ramp times you do for your application. Think of deragging as an add-on feature. It's not motor control per se, because everything should be preset in the drive for motor control. You want to set up the drive, do the AMA, do your ramp times and stuff for the application where it can run the application. Then DERAG is a add-on feature, another layer for clearing the pumps. But the motor control stuff, we're still using the motor control to start and stop it. And all the ramp times that would use is in play. And if I look at the ramp times of the FC202, we do have our main ramp up and down times, as well as for certain pumps, we have other ramps which will be part of this also. There's an initial ramp, so this is one for certain pumps that can't, well, if I say they can't ramp up slowly, you need to get up to a minimum speed quickly. And for a better view of that, there's mostly for any program to drive, I take a look at the programming guide, and this is a guide that has every parameter, every description, including the DERAG and how to tune it is in here too. But and there's good charts telling you what are all these functions. But let's say in DERAG, as I say, we need this kind of profile for starting it. So there's a minimum motor speed, but certain pumps need to get up to speed quick, and then you can take care of the application part of ramping up. So we have the maximum. So if I was deragging after this is set up, it will still do this for starting and getting up to speed. So we'll have like my preset speed right now is say in this level, but my derag is down here. Every time it starts, it will still go zip and then ramp to the deragging speed, and same with stopping. So it follows the ramp times that are set for basic function of the pump.
Can you pull back up the simulator, Joey?
Yes.
Go back to the main menu. And show one more time slowly how to get to the ramps.
Oh, sure. So this is the main menu, and what I did is if I'm in another parameter and I just want to get to the main menu, you can press the main group, back to the beginning. Instead of hitting back a bunch of times, I can hit main menu again. Takes me to the root. In the root menu, you can see the group 3 has the references and ramps, and all the ramps are in the group 3. So I hit the down arrow to highlight the 3 group, press OK. And then there is the main ramp in the 3-4. And I have the acceleration, the ramp up time. Let me move this over. If I didn't have the initial, this would be a linear line then. So I have the ramp up time from 0 to full speed. And I have the ramp downside. There's a second ramp that has to be commanded, usually from a digital input or serially. It can be set to a second ramp if you need one. And then, as said, there's other ramps, application type ramps. If we're using jog, there's a ramp time just for that. There's initial ramp time, and like I said, the feature is off, so if I don't set anything, this will stay linear. But if I need to get up to minimum motor speed, say in half a second, I can set that. So then the ramp time will be up to minimum, and then the rest is full speed. And there's some other ones. And the initial ramp is here. There's one called final ramp. There's some check valve ones in here. See the programming guide for that, for kind of bending it for a check valve, opening and closing, so you're not slamming them, flopping them open or slamming them shut. And then the final ramp time. But they're all in these three groups. So you have ramp 1, ramp 2, and other ramps.
Perfect. Thanks, Joey. All right, we're about out of time. Please rate Joey.
I did want to say it's in that Word document, just kind of simple and easy doing the power tuning. And what it is easier, and the big thing is that you can put the power in the top row. So when you're doing the tuning, you can see the power and actually measure it. You use the drive as a measurement device, basically. So setting the high limit, as we're looking at here, you would actually open the valves, run the drive full speed. The drive will measure this, and then you enter what is this point. And the same, take it down to a low speed, see what the low power is with the valve still open. That's a measurement, enter it, and now you have your 2 points. And the drive knowing is the pump, and it will follow the pump curve. And then you can set your deragging. And that's what's in that document saying for setting the display. They suggest, which I've done this one, so in the 0 group, you can custom set what's on the display. So when I'm tuning it, they're showing basically the filtered power right there. So you can actually see kilowatts there now, just changed. And
Joey, they can't see your screen while the poll is open.
oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry, I should have told you that.
That's okay. But it's follow the steps in there. It makes it simpler. How is the poll?
It's the highest I've ever seen, Joey. You've done a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone, for attending. I'm going to go ahead and drop off, and we'll leave the poll open for another minute or two.
Okay.
And look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming, and I appreciate it, giving me this time.